Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Thank you for making it back from lunch, as Gugu said.
I'll just pick that up for you.
Thank you so much. This is why I do panels with men only, so they can do the work. Now that I'm sure you're all here. Fantastic. Now that I'm sure you're all here, distinguished guests, this conversation is the one really where the rubber hits the road. This is where all of the work that's been taking place over the past year, and dare I say over the past few years, comes to a head as we take practical steps to understand how the inclusive growth that we're all striving for is going to impact every single level of society. We leave no one behind. It's a short conversation, and it is so because everything that needs to be said has already been said at the summit. We're here to summarize, gentlemen, and to leave our audience with the call to walk out of this room and ensure that these conversations live on. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you for making it here. I'm going to start with you, Lord Karan, because you've had quite a journey with the B20, seeing it get to a point where the Global South now hosts G20 like it's a normal Tuesday. What day of the week is it today? I can't even count. But let's talk a little bit about that journey and how we got here, because that is important to understand where the priorities that we see in the recommendations are right now.
Yes, so thank you. First and foremost, I'm absolutely delighted to be here in Johannesburg at the B20 and most importantly, be back in South Africa because my wife, Heather, is South African and I'm an honorary South African, so I'm home.
He can stay.
I've been coming here for 33 years to this lovely country, and I was president of the Confederation of British Industry. And in 2023, 2 years ago, I was in India when India was the host of the G20 and the B20, and I spoke at the B20. And at that time, President of CBI, the biggest announcement for me at that G20 was the African Union being admitted to the G20. And here we are 2 years later with the G20 in Africa, in South Africa. So it means a lot to me. Now, the theme of this particular panel is about SMEs, entrepreneurship, finance, inclusion, and I don't just talk, I've walked the talk. I started my business, Cobra Beer, from scratch when I was a student in my 20s. I got the idea, I went from India as a 19-year-old to study in the UK. I qualified as a chartered accountant with EY, with Ernst & Young. I did a law degree at Cambridge, and while I was at Cambridge, I came up with the idea for Cobra Beer. And most business ideas are very simple, big ideas, where you're dissatisfied as a consumer or a customer, and you think, I can do this better, I can do this differently, I can change the marketplace forever. And another way of looking at it is, you love something on the one hand and you hate something on the other hand. And I've always loved beer from the time I was allowed to drink it. And
yet you didn't bring us any.
Sorry?
You didn't bring us any to sample your SME work.
Well, we've got great beer in this country. And I hated the beers in the UK when fizzy lagers that were tasteless and bland and bloating and awful on their own and with food. And I loved English ale, and I thought, why can't I produce a beer that has the smoothness of an ale and the refreshment of a lager combined that would make it the best accompaniment to food and spicy food? And that was the genesis of Cobra Beer. Now, an idea is one thing, doing it is another thing. And to do it as an entrepreneur, there's one short word. You need guts. You need guts to do it, but more importantly, you need guts to stick with it when others would give up. And the most difficult thing when you're starting a business from scratch is money. How do you raise the money when you have no security? I was a student, I had student debt to pay off. How do you raise that money with no collateral? And that is really tough. And it starts with bank overdrafts and friends and family. But then you have government schemes. Like in the UK, the government guarantees banks up to 85% at one stage to lend to an SME of up to 6 million rand. And I tell you, without those loans, I wouldn't have been able to get Cobra off the ground. Things like invoice finance and factoring, where you get finance secured on your debtors. The more your sales grow, the more finance you get. And again, more of that finance is available, that can generate growth for business. So I've lived the hardship of growing a business from scratch, nearly failing 3 times, and the struggles of raising finance.
So you say it takes guts, it sounds like it takes policy and an enabling environment. And let's talk a little bit about what that means from a finance point of view. I love that you said we have great beers in this country. We do indeed. We also have a lot of great ideas in this country. There are great businesses that are started on this continent. There are great innovations that stem from Africa that just don't get to see the light of day, at least at the scale that we know they could in a developed market. So Bohani, I want to come to you and talk about that unlocking of finance and what we need to see that happen more effectively across the continent. And again, we're talking very practical levers here today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sinclair. It's great to be with you. I think that throughout the 2 days, we've already said a lot of things that I will not repeat. So we've spoken about the barriers to financing, especially in SMEs and small businesses and all kinds of, youth-owned business, women-led business. We've already spoken about that. Infrastructure and a whole lot of other stuff that we've spoken about. In my experience as a banker for 23 years, and a lot of it with Absa, one of the things that, unfortunately, because my friends and family know I'm a banker, is I always get a call to say, hey, you know what, I've started a business, can you organize financing for me, right? Most of those conversations end up with disappointment because, I can't do that. But importantly though, is one of the things we've talked about and we've talked about at length, and we actually have as banks, as DFIs, as insurance companies, as private, funders, is we've identified the fact that blended financing and risk-sharing solutions work. I think we've all agreed to that. And I think as you and I were reflecting earlier, blended financing is probably the weight of the B20.
Of this commit, yeah.
I think the point, therefore, is no more about the fact that these things are out there and we should do them. The real question, in my view, is how do we scale them up? And scaling them up is not a big rocket science question. I think the challenge I want to put into the room and everywhere in the continent is, let's ask ourselves the question of what would we need to do to double our exposures in all these financing, risk-sharing opportunities and facilities that we have in place. Because actually, we talk about, we refer to the infrastructure financing gap in billions of dollars. We refer to trade financing gap. We refer to working capital financing gap, all of these things. We actually have the solutions. We know the solutions that work. The solutions that work is commercial banks, is DFIs, is insurance companies with guarantees, it's fintechs, it's private funders, all collaborating to actually provide finance and risk-sharing solutions. We know the answer, but I think the question is scale, and I think each of us here need to be thinking about scales, because the amount of challenge that is out there and the requirements that are out there are not going to be met by some small programs here and there. So I think what I want to add to the blended financing and risk-sharing solution that we all know about is one word: scale.
So then I'll throw back to you the question around, I think, understanding that scale is something that requires us to come together. We formed things like the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. What do we need to, why have we not seen that scale take place? Why have we not seen that level of collaboration across the continent? And really, what is the cost of us not doing this? How is this impacting the SMEs on the ground and the real growth that we're looking to be able to push down, up and down the value chain within the financial control models that we need to open up?
We talk a lot about intra-Africa trade, and we've spoken about the 17% and what it would mean if we got that to 25% or whatever the number is. The point, however, is that, and now the AFCFTA, I think, is running guided tours, and some of the findings from that is actually the inefficiencies that exist in the value chains from the regulatory environment in the multiple countries, the customs unions, what happens when you get to the ports, all of these things where, as I was saying earlier, somebody might just say to you, you need Form X, and you've never heard what Form X is in your life. And the point is, we need to, and this is a challenge to governments, it's a challenge to government agencies, let's make it easier for people to choose the option to buy from Kenya, to buy from Ghana, to buy from South Africa, and so forth. And the challenges are actually just inefficiencies. And if we can sort those things out, the reality is we're competing for capital with not just small economies across the world. We're competing for capital with big economies across the world, big markets. And we, as a single market, as Africa, have got a great opportunity. But for us to crystallize that opportunity, we need to remove the inefficiencies brought about by regulations, all of these kinds of things that make it very difficult for people to choose to buy from Kenya instead of buying from Germany.
You make an interesting point, Bohani, around the fact that we need to approach this as a single market. We often, as Africa, do remind you, all our foreign guests, that we are not a country. Africa is a continent of multiple countries. But in this case, we would like to see how we can bring the different countries together and actually form one strong economic player that's able to compete for financing on the world stage. And I think this is where I bring you in, Dr. Morena, because you know this very well, having built the kind of company that in your sector, you meet a real need on this continent when we talk about vaccines and healthcare, the growth that you've seen, but also the other parts of the industry that you've been able to implement beyond just pharmaceuticals. I'd like you to talk about some of the barriers that you've experienced in this sense and driving those down your value chain, but also some of the opportunities that you see that can tie into what the policy framework should be allowing us to do.
No, thank you, Zintle. As you say, I represent the pharmaceutical sector, but more specifically, vaccines. That's what we do. For those that don't know, vaccines form part of the biological. We call them biologicals. Now, that is the most difficult, within the pharmaceutical sector, is one of the most difficult area in terms of developing, because you're dealing with, viruses, bugs, all the biological things. So the barriers to entry are very high. And so a lot of the times when our company was formed, and as we're going through, people were saying, but what are you doing with this in Africa? I mean, will you ever get it right? Just stop what you're doing. And let the other countries and continents be able to service us. The COVID came, okay, and now people understood, okay, there's this thing called a vaccine and we need it. And so at least fortunately we can be able to talk about it. But I want to talk beyond vaccines, Zintle, because what we are is a biotechnology sector. So whilst we're doing, but it's a biotechnology sector. When people think about biotechnology sector, they think about the Boston area, they think about Silicon Valley, they think about Singapore, where those are hubs, and it's never associated with the continent. So what we're doing is actually building not only a company that will be doing vaccines, but it's actually growing a biotechnology sector, so that our scientists and our pharmacists can find employment here. They don't have to go overseas. And we tick a few boxes, beyond what we do. So we are high infrastructure, infrastructure we've spoken about. So a lot of CapEx that you need. We need finance, from DFIs and from others. We do meaningful employment in terms of pharmacists, biotechnologists, really, and ultimately, there's a good impact to society. I mean, what an industry to be in. I mean, that you can do all of those things. So, but it's real, tangible things that are happening here in South Africa. We're based in Cape Town, and that's where we are also finding the ecosystem that is only now is enabling us to at least do a little bit more and push a little bit more, and to really, prove that biotechnology and sophistication can happen right here on the continent.
So you've spoken very much to your sector, but what I'm hearing here is industrial self-reliance, how we create on the continent and the ability for our value chain to live here and for us all to benefit from it. And maybe let's talk about a bit more of your understanding on how that can become a pathway to inclusive growth and how you've managed to create that market as well for yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, and again, COVID is probably in people's memories. So the best that not only our company, but the best that any African company could do if you wanted to manufacture vaccines was to get the raw material from whoever that you partnered with, and only then would you be able to do the downstream side of the manufacture. But we're now getting into a space where we're now developing our own vaccines from scratch. Now that's R&D. Okay, now R&D in our sector is never associated with Africa, but we can now start talking about that, in terms of talking about R&D. And ultimately, as I say, that it has to have a meaningful impact. But to put that together is not as easy as I'm describing. It's not only about the people that are there, but it's the whole ecosystem that you need. You need government assistance. You need long-term tenure of capital. You just really need to be patient and a little bit crazy to be in this sector. And this is where there's this saying I think that we know about, that the earliest time to plant a tree was 20 years ago.
The best time to plant a tree, yes.
And the second one is now. Our sector's like that. You really need 10, 20 years. It needs to survive politics and the era and governments. We really need long-term tenure. And but that's the only way that we can get a thriving biotechnology sector going on the continent.
Lord Karan, your view on creating this enabling environment, because we've now established that this is really where our focus needs to be.
In creating an environment.
This enabling environment, yes.
So I'm now proud to be chair of the International Chamber of Commerce, the ICC UK, and the International Chamber of Commerce is the largest business organization in the world with 45 million businesses, all over the world, including here, and we have our Secretary General, John Denton, who's over here with us as well. We focus on trade, and we focus on championing business. Look at trade. How many SMEs export? Many more of them should export, and we should encourage them to export, and government can play a big role in providing the finance. When it comes to trade, digital trade, we've championed the way with the ICC. With digital trade, you can reduce what used to take 3 months of paper-based trading to 1 hour. You can save costs by 80%. You can increase productivity by 60%. This is there for the taking. In the UK, we passed an act in Parliament, in the House of Lords, where I sit, on digital trade. Why don't we use it around the world? So that's one example. The next is when it comes to finance and collaboration and government working together with business and with universities. We haven't mentioned that. In your field, in the pandemic, when I was president of CBI, we had the UK government working with Oxford University, which then partnered with AstraZeneca, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, based in Oxford, but headquartered in Cambridge, and then partnering with the Serum Institute of India, the largest vaccine manufacturers in the world, to produce 2 billion doses of the COVID vaccine that saved I don't know how many millions of lives. And that came out of a collaboration of government, universities, business working together. When it comes to providing finance, look at the microfinance initiatives that exist around the world, including the famous one from Bangladesh from the Nobel Prize winner. Now, do you know the statistics on microfinance? Women borrow a lot of the money, and they pay back nearly 100% of that money. And it is that we need to encourage, to have that finance available. Look at India. India, 1.4 billion people, has leapfrogged in terms of technology. India's digital identity cards that everyone in India has, but then you have digital payments that are better than anywhere else in the world. And what that means is it's inclusive. Anyone can use those digital payments. A person selling on the streets can use the digital payments. It brings in inclusivity when it comes to finance. So I want to end with this. The key role government has is to create the environment for business to flourish and to champion entrepreneurship. When I went to the UK in the early 80s, the UK was known as the sick man of Europe. Entrepreneurship was looked down upon. Since then, it has changed. And there was a glass ceiling for people from abroad like me who came as immigrants. They said, you'll never get to the top because you will not be allowed to get to the top as a foreigner. That was true in the 80s. Today, it's not true at all. That glass ceiling has been shattered. And we've got people from ethnic minorities reaching the very top in the UK in every field, including a prime minister of Indian origin in the UK. So this change in championing entrepreneurship where anyone can succeed has happened in the UK. We have more big companies, unicorns, than almost any other country in the world. The same thing has happened over here in South Africa. Yesterday, Professor Naidu, who's been chairing a lot of the panels, with fellow Harvard Business School alumni, he gave me a case study on Nelson Mandela. And you look back at this country when I first came here in 1992, how before that, aspiration did not exist. You could not get anywhere in life. Today, you can get anywhere, regardless of race, religion, or background in this country. And that has changed. Now, if you have that aspirational attitude, our motto at Cobra Beer was aspire and achieve against all odds with integrity. And today we can aspire and we can achieve and we can get there and we can do it with integrity. And I make this final point. Mahatma Gandhi was a South African and he went to India. And he's been a great mentor to so many of us, including to Nelson Mandela himself. And his favorite saying is this, if I may paraphrase, you have to believe, because your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits form your character, and your character determines your destiny. And this country is destined for great things, as is Africa. Thank you, B20. Thank you, G20.
Thank you, Lord Karan. I think that's a strong place for us to leave it, ladies and gentlemen. If there's one thing that's been clear from the discussions is that business certainly believes, and that is showcased by the level of investment in the conversations and meetings that have taken place over the past year. We've seen how former B20 presidency countries have come along the journey with South Africa and the rest of the continent, as this has been South Africa's G20 and South Africa's B20, but shared with the continent. So it's been led from Africa and shared with the world. It's been an absolute pleasure. I think, thank you for leaving the room with a tone, South Africans will remember this, that says we are alive with possibility. And that is something that we can take over into the next few sessions for the remainder of the day as we hand over to government what is the business posture, and hopefully that is belief. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I am Zinhle Oya. Thank you to my panel.
Thank you.